everybody, this is Michelle and I'm here today to share with you the tutorial that I'm doing for this weekend's National Scrapbooking Day events. At Country Craft Creations, Tamra is doing an all-day tutorial event, and several of the designers are also doing some events that will be posted throughout the day, and I'm going to post mine on Sunday, so mine is going to be kind of a post National Scrapbooking Day project. So there will be stuff on Friday, there will be stuff on Saturday, and there will be stuff on Sunday. So I hope that you join in and make some fun projects. Now, I did do a share already and posted that on what we're going to make, and I just wanted to kind of go over this again real quick. What I'm doing is I'm kind of going back to the basics of my kind of scrapbooking, designing adventures. Way back in the day, I'm sure a lot of you can remember, we made scrapbooks out of everything, including file folders, greeting cards, all kinds of things that people played with. And that's where I really got my designing ideas going. That's where I finally, kind of learned how to do my own pages and then morph into what I've done lately. So it's been a journey for a lot of us, but I wanted to kind of go back to my roots. And so I created an album out of cards and envelopes. Now, this came to me because honestly, I'm not a card maker, and I buy card making kits and then I never put them together because it's just, I don't know. I do them for my grandkids and, my husband and stuff. But I don't do them, as a rule, and I don't know. I just really haven't done them. So I have these card making kits that I thought I need to do something with, but I really didn't want to make the cards. So I decided that that's what I was going to use, and that's kind of what started this whole project. So I showed this project, the Life is a Journey album. These papers were purchased from Country Craft Creations, and I do have a video, and I will link the walkthrough in the description for you. But it's a really cool album made solely out of a couple pieces of cardstock and some cards and some envelopes, and I will show you how to make all of the flaps and folds and how we configured everything. My prototype I did want to share with you because this one here is made out of 7x5 cards, and that's what we're going to use today for our tutorial. This one here was made out of the cards that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so the standard smaller cards that pretty much everybody has in their stash. And then this was a paper line that I had in my stash, and so this was my prototype kind of thing. And the reason why I wanted to show this one, this particular book, I used a lot of paper. I used an entire 8x8 package of paper. This is Graphic 45's Life's a Journey, and it's one of my favorite collections ever. I love the colors and everything, but I did use a lot of paper in this one. In the prototype that I did, which is this one, the cards actually had some embossing on it, and I don't know if you can see that very well, but I wanted to showcase the embossing. I didn't want to cover all that up, so I have a lot of white space in this particular album, and it didn't, oops, got a little bit in there, didn't require as much paper to make this one. So what my purpose of showing you this is that if you have embossed cards, you can still use them, and you can embrace the embossing by leaving a bunch of white space so that that gets featured, and then put pattern paper over all of the other things. So this album is exactly the same as the bigger version and the one we're going to show today. It's just made with smaller cards. So, but you can see you get a lot of real estate in these particular albums. So, so again, this was all from my stash here. In a card making kit. So all the embellishments and everything came in a card making kit that I had. So this one, again, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cards, but we are going to focus today on making one out of 5x7 cards. And again, a few pieces of cardstock, and then that's pretty much it. In this one, I did use, we make side pockets so you can have places to put tags. We've got a couple pockets in between the pages you can put tags. There's lots of flips and flaps and all that stuff. So we're gonna go over how to make the base. Again, the walkthrough on all of the different parts and pieces of this album, I'll have a link below, and talk about how I made the dangle and everything else. So let's get started with that. And we're gonna go over real quick what you are going to need. So you will need 8 envelopes that go with the 5x7 cards. And the important thing for this album is that you need envelopes that are straight across. So don't get the envelopes that have the pointy thing. I mean, they would work, but some of the flaps, they're not going to work so well with the construction of it. So you do need to have the ones that have the flat edge. Now, if you don't have these envelopes, you can totally make these on your own. Just get some typing paper and construct the envelope. I do not have instructions for that, but there's, excuse me, lots of tutorials out there for how to do that. But anyways, so you'll need 8 envelopes, and then you need 8 cards, 5x7 cards. And then you will also need a couple pieces of cardstock. So you're going to need 2 pieces for the front and back cover, and I'm recommending heavyweight cardstock. Either get something that's at least 80 pound to 110 pound. Artisan Cardstock from Country Craft Creations would be fabulous for this project, especially, you know, when you put the paper, the pattern paper on top of this, it's really going to make it sturdy. So again, you'll need 2 pieces of cardstock, and these measure 7 3/4 by 5 1/2. So you'll need 2 of those. That's the front and back cover. And then you're going to need the spine piece here. The spine piece is 7 3/4 tall by 4 3/4. And then you're going to need some binding pieces. Now the binding pieces vary in length because some of them are for the cards and some of them are for the envelopes. So the ones for the envelopes need to measure the length of your card, and these particular ones for this card are 7 1/4 by 1 1/2, and then the ones for your cards measure 7 by 1 1/2. Okay, so they fit the actual height of your card. If you are using a different size card, you'll have the same width measurement. They're all going to be 1 1/2, but you'll have to change the height. Same goes with the covers and the spines. The spine width will be the same, but the height will be different depending on the size of your card. So if you're going to use different size cards, you will have to adjust for the height of the card and the envelope. Okay, and what I did was the envelope is 7 1/4, and I did it 1/2 inch taller. So if you're going to use a card that's 5 1/2, you will have to have a spine and cover height that's 6. I hope that makes sense. So it will be a little bit taller. So the purpose of that is that when you put the envelopes and stuff in, it'll be 1/4 inch. The spine and the covers will be 1/4 inch taller on the top and the bottom. So you'll have a little bit of space. All right. And then, so yeah, you'll have to adjust for that, but that's pretty easy to do. Okay. So let's get started with the construction. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to construct the actual cover, and then we'll move on to making the pages. So I'm going to pause real quick because we will need to have some pattern paper. You will need to have 2 pieces of pattern paper cut to do the covers. So I will do that. Actually, I guess you really don't, but I'm going to because that's how I did it. So I will be right back. I'm going to cut those papers. Okay, I'm back. So I chose some papers. Let me get this out of the way. So I chose some papers. This is from the line, oh goodness, Glamour by Authentique that I did get from Country Craft Creations. And I'm going to use this for making the album. So we aren't going to decorate a whole lot during this, but I will need some pattern papers to show you how things go together. So we're going to use this line today. And you will need to make the cover, you will need to have two pieces that will attach to the front and the back. You do need to do this in the way that I did the binding, because the actual covers will be glued to the inside of the binding piece. So this binding piece goes from the punched edges all the way across, and then the covers are attached to the inside of that. Oh, lost one of my cards. So we're going to grab our art glitter glue and put those covers on. Because the paper is white that I'm using, I don't know if I can get that off there, I am not going to ink the edges of the paper. If I was using a darker paper, like if I was going with a gray or a black with this, I probably would ink the edges, but since it's going to be white, I'm not going to do that. So we'll just get some glue on here. So you do need to figure out your pattern papers when you make this album, because part of, again, the construction is making sure that you have that. Okay, so go ahead and do that one, and then let me grab this. I should have had that ready to go. Okay, do that. Okay, so we'll get our covers covered. Now the inside cover can wait, but the outside cover does need to be covered before we do this. And then the other thing too, which is totally preference, is that I punched the edge of my spine piece on my books. So if you look, I punched the edge. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, because you could also, I left it white, but you could use a piece of patterned paper on this strip as well, which would help accent it. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. You don't have to do that when you're actually constructing it, but you can do that later. So that's part of the decoration. When I get done with this video, I will finish decorating the album, and then I will have pictures at the end of the video to show you how I did it. So now I should have explained. So the spine piece here is 4 3/4 by 7 3/4, and I scored on either side at 3/4. So you would score at 3/4, either turn it and then do it again, or you can score it at 3/4 and then at 4. Okay, so our spine is going to be 4 inches wide, and then we'll have these 3/4 inch pieces overhanging. So I went ahead and folded and burnished those. All right, and then we're simply going to turn it over, and our covers will adhere to the inside like that. So then I'm just going to put some art glitter glue here, and I am going to use strips of patterned paper on this one instead of punching. So decide which one you want first, and I guess it doesn't really, kind of like this one, has more blue in it. Okay, so then just go to the score line and stick that down nice and straight. We're not going to cover, you don't have to cover the spine with patterned paper. I did not, I just left it white, which I kind of liked the clean look. And then it also kind of blended in with the bindings better. So I liked that better. So I'm not going to cover the spine with patterned paper, but you certainly could if you wanted to. So again, attaching our spine to our cover, just to the fold. There we go. Okay, so that's the cover. And then obviously you're going to decorate the outside of the spine, but on the inside where we're going to put our bindings, I did not do that, okay? The bindings will be, let me see, which one do I want to use? The bindings will be set so these each have a 1/2 inch gusset, and we're going to attach our pages to the sides. And they're going to be set at a 1/4 inch apart. So in between the page sets that we're going to create, there'll be a 1/4 inch of a gusset. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So we're going to take our binding pieces. I'll set this aside for a second. We are scoring them at a 1/2 inch on each side. So they're each 1.5 inches wide. And then all of them will just be scored at 1/2 inch. Okay, so 2 for the cards and 2 for the envelopes. So when we construct these, the first page set will be mainly or solely made out of cards. The second page set will solely be made out of envelopes. The third will be of cards, and the fourth will be out of envelopes, okay? This will make sense as I construct this, because we're going to do this all together. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. I constructed everything and then attached it to the album, or you could attach these to the spine and then construct on these pieces. I prefer constructing everything on these pieces and then putting them in the album once the pages are constructed, and then decorating from there. Just because I found it easier to construct the pages without a bunch of bulk, you know, on it. But when we do this, you'll have about a 1/4 inch in between your spine pieces, and then your spine pieces will have a 1/2 inch in between the pages. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So we'll go ahead and make the pages, and then we'll put them in. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to set this aside. First thing we're going to need is the card piece, so we're going to need a shorter binding piece. And we'll need 2 cards. Let's get my cards. All right, so the first card, what we're going to do is take your trimmer, and you will need something that you can accurately kind of measure and see where you're going. So we're going to cut the back of the card. We're going to cut this top panel out halfway. So I'm just going to, this is a 5-inch card, or a 7-inch card, I'm sorry. So we're going to go down to 3.5. And then do it again at 3.5, and we're just going to cut that top panel out. Just be careful and don't go over your lines. Like that. Okay. Then, that's our first page. That's it. That's done. Now, save this. We can use those later. All right. So, first page is cut like that. And then what we're going to do is take our binding, and the binding's going to lay down like this. So we're going to put this first card on the top here, and we're going to simply just adhere it there. You will need to miter the corners, at least I did, because I like to do that. So miter all your binding pieces. Okay. Then we're going to adhere the card so that this is on the top. So this will be the front page. We're going to glue that down. I'm just going to put some glue on my binding piece. And then making sure that this little flap is on the top, I'm just going to lay this down right to the score line. Like so. Okay. Okay. Then what we're going to do is you will need to put pattern paper down on here, and then this part will glue down like that. So let me cut a piece of pattern paper, It's 7 by 5. So we will need a piece that's 4 7/8 by 6 7/8. So let me pick my paper. Let's just go ahead and use. How to use that? Let's use this. This will be pretty because this will show you. All right. One more here. Okay, so first paper here, and we're going to lay that down. Isn't this paper gorgeous? I love it. I love the colors. I'm a fan. Blue and green are my favorite colors, so those really pop at me. All right, so we'll lay down our pattern paper. I cut it 1/8 of an inch smaller than the card. And then, boom, there you go. Okay, what did I do with my... I always throw this away. I don't know why I do that. It drives me crazy. Okay, so then we're just going to simply take glue, and we're going to glue the edge of this pocket down. Okay, there you go. So our first page is done. See little niblets hanging off here. All right, so our first page is done, and so we've got it on the binding even, and so there you go. Now you can stop here and just use this as a blank page if you wanted to, but I didn't do that because I wanted extra pockets and things like that. So we're going to take our second card and we're going to make a flat page. So we're going to essentially glue this back onto the spine piece, and we're going to glue it on 3 sides so that it creates a top pocket. Or actually, no, I take that back. This one, pardon me, is going to be a side pocket. So I'm sorry. So we're going to glue it on 3 sides like this so that the tags will come out here. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a little bit of this page here. I did a punched edge, but you can just trim off a little bit, just do a straight cut. So I'm going to take off probably like 1/4 of an inch. And the reason I'm going to do that is because then that will kind of free up it from the spine so that it turns nicely and it doesn't get squished up. So I'm going to just cut off about 1/4 of an inch off that side. And then we're going to glue it on like so. And then I just did a lot of glue on the binding piece. And then I'm going to turn that, line up my cards. All right. Lay that down. Okay, so now we've got our first page. So we have a pocket here, and then we will have a pocket here. Make sure it's glued down. Okay, so you have a pocket here, you will have a pocket here, and then when you turn the page, you will have a flip here, and you'll see that there is a little bit of 1/4 of an inch to help keep the pages from getting stuck. So then you have that opportunity. So there's that. So then the next part that we're going to do is another set of cards that will attach to this piece of the binding. So we're going to take our second card, and we're simply going to cut off, we're going to turn it like this, and we're going to cut off half of the back here, and then that will create a pocket page. So we're going to do that. I'm going to cut off 2.5 inches because the card is 5 inches wide. We're going to save those pieces because we're going to use them. Okay, so now you have a card that looks like this, and we're going to simply attach this to this piece of the binding, just like so. And then the other thing is that we're going to need another piece of pattern paper because we'll need to put that on before we create the pocket. So I'm just going to put the glue on there and lay that down. Now you could totally just repeat these pages and not use envelopes if you wanted to. This album has a lot of possibilities. And if you didn't want to use cards, you could just cut, you know, cardstock and do that. So here's this pattern page right here. And let's go ahead and cut a piece of paper. Let's see how we are doing here. What's this? There. And like that. And we're going to glue this down. So I'm using the other piece of that. I honestly have no idea how much 12 by 12 paper this would take. But like I said, for the 5 by 7 album that I showed you when I used Life's a Journey, it used an entire 8 by 8 paper pad. And then I did use a couple sheets of cardstock. Okay, so got that. And then to make the pocket, you just simply put glue at the top and at the bottom, and then glue it down. And then you can come back later and decorate the rest of the pocket, okay? Again, if you wanted to do edge trimming, you could do that. We're going to do it just straight today because I want to get this done for you, okay? So then we will need to do the back of the card. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a top loading pocket with this one and then a flap. So it's going to look like that. Okay, and on this one, I took a piece of leftover scrap pattern paper and just glued it on 3 sides and made a pocket, left some white space here, and then in between these two, you're going to have that top pocket there. So that's the one we're creating now. So we'll take our card, and then we're just going to cut it totally in half. I'm going to do that real fast. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these pieces and make sure when you cut it that you take the score out, because you can see there's, you know, the score line. So just do it right on the other side of the score. And then we're going to take this piece and we're going to trim a 1/2 inch. Let's see, how did I do that? I did, yeah, 1/2 inch off on this side, okay? So we're gonna make it 4.5 inches wide. Okay, so now it's smaller. And then we're gonna take our little scoreboard here, and then I'm going to score a 1/2 inch to make the flap, or the tab that's going to create the flap, I should say. Okay, so we'll take that page, do that. Okay, so we trimmed that card, and then we did a 1/2 inch score. And you don't necessarily have to miter this one because it is going to be smaller. It won't go quite to the edge. It's going to be about 1/4 inch in on both sides. So then just take this little tab, and then, doesn't really matter top or bottom because I haven't put it in the book yet. And then glue that down, and that's going to create our flap. Okay, and then we're going to just simply glue this in. So this is the back of the piece that we just put in, and we're going to glue it on 3 sides so that it creates a top pocket. So we're just going to glue here, down the bottom, and up the top there. Line that up and glue it down. Okay, there you go. So that part is done. So now we're going to have a top pocket. Okay, so our first page assembly is done. So the first page will have a pocket here, and then we'll turn it. Then we will have a flap. Then we will have another pocket page here, and then we turn it, and then we have another flap. And then bonus pockets will be on the inside between this card set. And then we will have a pocket, a side pocket in the first card set. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So here's your spine. That's what's going to glue into the inside of your cover. So part one is done, or piece one. So now we're going to move on to envelopes, because these are going to alternate. So you need to make sure you have your bigger, longer spine piece. Okay, and we're going to have a couple envelopes. So now the first thing we're going to do is really super simple. We're going to grab an envelope, and this one is just going to be a complete flap pocket. Okay, so really, really super simple. I'm just going to glue it down. That's it. I covered it with pattern paper later, and it was pretty easy to do. So we're just going to glue that down. So again, we got to miter our corners. This album was fun for me to put together because I just love sitting here and thinking about ways to do stuff, which was kind of fun. All right, so first page is going to go on the outside of our first tab piece here for the binding. And then just simply glue this down. The other thing is that in the little album that I made, the envelopes actually were had color on the inside of them. So that was kind of nice that I didn't have to worry about that. Some of these are pretty thin, so you might have to pattern paper like all of the envelope, because it will show through. If you put some paper in here, it will show through up here. So it just depends on the thickness of the paper. So that's it. That's it for that. So we're going to just have a flap that what I did was I covered with pattern paper on both sides. And then I took, you can decorate this. You can put like a journaling card here so it goes all the way across and then opens up, however you want to decorate that. And we're going to turn this over because now we're going to put the envelope on this side. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one is we're going to create a piece that flaps out, but it also has the pocket here. So we're going to have to shorten the envelope just a little bit, and I'll show you kind of a trick that I learned a long time ago when you need a smaller envelope and you need to mail something and the envelope's kind of too big, how to shorten an envelope. So we're going to take another envelope, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to score down the bottom of this envelope at 1/2 inch, because I want to preserve this, because that's how we're going to attach it to the pocket. So the bottom of the envelope, I'm just going to score at 1/2 inch, just like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut, like miter where that score is. And then I'm going to just take a sliver off of the end, which essentially will open this up. Okay, so now I basically just opened up the end of my envelope and I've got the score and the miter. Okay, so then what I did was then I went in with my scissors, and I'm going to go this way, and then I cut one of those tabs out, and I tried to do it a little bit over the score line so that I cut the score line out. And then that's garbage, as they say. Then I'm going to fold that flap over, and it is what it did was it closed my envelope and it made it a 1/2 inch smaller. Okay, so again, the reason why I did that was because I wanted it to not interfere with the page turning by butting up against the binding piece. So I'm going to put a little glue, reseal that, and we're done. Okay, so now we have our envelope that's a little bit shorter, so it is a 1/2 inch shorter. And then we're simply going to just take this, and we're going to glue this flap to this page. That will create the flap and the pocket. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about these pockets. Okay, so some of these have pieces that are, you know, the flaps, the side flaps. If you do not like them, which I don't, because if you want to cover this with pattern paper, they kind of get in the way, especially if you want the pattern paper to get in the pocket. So I just simply went in with my scissors and snipped it so that it's even with the envelope pocket. And then just take a little bit of glue and then just, whoops, glue them down. So that kind of reinforces the edge of the envelope, but then also when you want to put your pattern paper in, so let me use this just to show you. When you want to put your pattern paper in, you can actually get it to the edge of the envelope like that, okay? So just, you can do that. If it doesn't bother you or you're not going to put pattern paper in, you don't have to do that. It's just for me. That's what I did with my books, and it worked out really great. Okay, so that's the one we've already attached to the binding. That's going to be that front page. So we're going to turn this over. We're going to glue this flap to this. So, and you don't have to worry about cutting the glue of the envelope off of this one, because this is just going to get covered with pattern paper anyway to create a page. And then just line this bad boy up. Like so, and put it down, and now you have the page that when you turn it, it will flip out. You will have a pocket here, which I need to still do that. I probably should have done that before it's stuck down. And then you'll have a page with pattern paper over here. All right, so there's that. Hope that made sense. Again, as always, you guys, if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know, because I am more than happy to answer questions. More than happy to answer questions. Okay, so that's that part. All right, so then the next part of this envelope is what, let me double check and make sure. Okay, so we're going to take our envelope, and what we're going to do is we're going to adhere it so that the flap is to the back. Okay? Yeah, so that's pretty simple. We're just going to take our envelope and we're going to glue it to the spine. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. I want to make sure that I get this right. So we're going to adhere that to the spine, just like that, so the flap is going behind it. Okay, so the pocket's behind it and everything. So pretty simple. There, that part's done. So when you turn this page, the flap will be here. This is going to be our gatefold page. So you're going to take your other envelope, okay, and we're going to cut this guy in half. So right down the middle. All right, so let me go do that. So the envelope is 5 1/4. So I'm going to cut it at like 2 5/8, which will be half. Okay, so you're going to end up with the bottom pocket piece here, and then you'll have your flap piece here. So I'm going to trim this because my cutter, I'm getting a new dolly cutter. It's supposed to be here on Tuesday, and I cannot wait. I've been using another cutter, and I love it, but sometimes it drives me crazy, and I really want a dolly, so I'm excited. Little present for Mama. All right, so I'm taking glue on the bottom of this envelope pocket here, and then I'm just going to adhere it right to the bottom of the envelope here, and that's going to create a pocket page right like so. Okay, and that part's done. So then we're going to take our book, we're going to flip it over, and what we're going to do is we're going to attach this flap to this side and create a gatefold. Now, there's two things that you can do. I'm going to show you So I did the gatefold here, so this is what it's going to essentially look like. So I used a chipboard piece here to just put over the top. You could put a magnet down before you put your pattern paper if you want to, but I didn't because the chipboard was pretty heavy and it didn't seem like it was a big deal. And then I just put a piece of cardstock on the inside to create just a big page. Now you'll notice that when we do this, you're going to have an envelope pocket here. You can totally keep that pocket if you want to, or just plain cover it up like I did. However you want to do it. So you have some options. I'm going to cover it up just like I did. So then you have this flap. We don't need all of this excess. So I'm going to just cut a 1/2 inch from this score here and get rid of that. And then, let's see what we got here. Okay. And then I'm going to just miter that. So this is basically creating the tab to attach it. Some of these envelopes are a little funky too. We left off where we're going to create this gatefold. So we have the tab, we mitered it, and then we just need to apply glue to that little piece and get that attached. Now when I, the other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this yet or not, but when I made my book, I did the designing first and then I went back and covered everything with pattern paper. And it was actually pretty easy to do even though it was attached into the book. But you could totally finish doing all the pattern paper before, you know, we attach it into our book. But there you go. This is it. So the first page, the envelope, we're going to have a flap with a pocket. Very simple. And then we're going to turn this page and then we attached it so that there's a flat page with another pocket page. And then we have a pocket page here. Now I put pattern paper down into the pocket, which covered up the edge of that piece of cut envelope on the inside, so your tags won't stick to anything, which is nice. And then when we turned it, now we're going to have our little gatefold that we created, and you can either keep this as a pocket page or you could put pattern paper completely over it and just make that a photo op page. So there's our second assembly, which is all envelopes. So let's go to assembly number 3, which is going to be cards again. So we will need our shorter piece of binding right there. And then let me just double check my notes because I want to make sure I get it right for you. All right, so this one, let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to take a couple cards and we're going to put them together for this first part. So here's the card assembly we're going to create now. So this first part here, we're going to take a couple cards and we're going to create a booklet. And in the booklet, we're going to have a top pocket page, and then it also has a magnet closure. Okay, so that is what we're going to create now. All right, so it's basically like a, well, it is, it's a booklet. So couple cards here, and super easy to do. We are going to just take them, here's our binding, and we're going to take card number 1 in the regular orientation and just glue it to this binding piece. Right at the score line. Oh, I forgot to miter the corner. Ah. Let me see if I can do it real quick. Ooh, bad cut. Yeah, okay, that didn't work out very well. Thank goodness for pattern paper to cover that one up. Okay, so, yes, ladies and gentlemen, miter your corners. Miter your corners before you do this. So, okay, so we glued that down to that. So that's the first part. So it's glued to the very first outside piece of the binding. And then we're going to take the second card and we're going to adhere it to the back, and we're going to glue it on 3 sides, okay? So that will create the page flaps and the top pocket. Oh, good. I even, I don't have to use pattern paper to cover it up because I'm going to cover it up with the pocket. Yay! All right, so I'm going to lay that down here. Even that up. It's going to be glued on 3 sides. Make sure that's lined up really nice. Okay, there we go. So now what we have is we have a card, and it's glued together, so you'll end up with 3 pages, all right? And then we will have the top pocket right here, okay? So then, I'm gonna cut that little nubbin off. So then we're gonna create the closure. You will need a magnet for that, and then you will need this piece of card that we cut out earlier. So what I did was I trimmed it to 2.5 and 2.5 wide, which it pretty much is. And then I'm going to cut it at, what am I going to cut it at? What did I cut it at? Did I write that down? I did not. So let me think about this for a second. Let's see, 3.25. So 2.5 by 3.25. And we're going to score this guy. So we're going to score at 2.5 and 2 3/4. Okay, so that's going to give us a 2.5 by 2.5 square here. It's going to give us a 1/4 inch gusset, and oh, my paper ripped. Do I have another piece? 2.5 by 3.25. Yes. All right. Scratch that. I got a little crazy with the scoring. All right. 2.5 by 3.25. We're going to score at 2.5 and 2 3/4. Okay, so it's going to give us a 2.5 inch square here. It's going to give us our 1/4 inch gusset for the pages, and then it's going to give us our tab to adhere it to the back. So we're going to take our page assembly, and we're just going to glue this to the middle, to the back, and it will wrap around the front, and it will create the closure. Okay, so you don't have to miter the corner on this one. Not necessary. It's going to get covered with pattern paper. And then I'm just going to line this up, and let's use our centering ruler so that we're really accurate. Go a little closer here, and yeah, right about there. And then just make sure that the score is just a wee bit over, you know, the page. And glue that down. Okay, so we have that nice and glued down. Okay, then this guy will go wrap around the pages and accommodate for some bulk, and then all you have to do is add a magnet to that. So we can do that. Come on, Michelle, you can do it. Okay, just like that. So let's grab a magnet. Oh, not that one. Actually wanted this one. Okay, so I'm using large magnets that I get from Country Craft Creations, and I'm just going to put that right about there and take that tape off, fold that around, making sure not to, you know, bend that 1/4 inch gusset, because we want it to be viable there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of score tape on there so the magnets don't pop off till I put the pattern paper over top of them. Like that. Okay, So there's that first piece of the card assembly. So we got page, 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 and then we'll have magnet closure and then a pocket in the middle section here. So the second part of this is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to take another card, and we are going to cut down the center halfway, and then we're going to score across the front. Okay, so grab my paper cutter, and I'm going to line that up, making sure my score is right there, and I'm going to cut down to 3.5, just like that, and take it out, and then grab my scoreboard, and I'm going to put it in so that the cut part is at the left side, and at 3.5, because that is the midpoint of the card, I'm going to score just to that cut line, just like that. Okay, so now you have a cut and you have a score here. Then what we're going to do is we're just simply going to fold that down and burnish that score. And then the other thing I'm going to do is double check. Just make sure you cut that score out because it's a little unsightly and I don't like it. You just need to take a little sliver off there. And then the other thing you need to do is just take a wee bit of a sliver, however you want to orient it, just a wee bit of this, because then it'll help the page turn because it's going to fold to the inside. So you can see I just took off just a wee little bit. Okay, and then we're going to glue this down so that it creates a pocket right here. So we're just going to put glue here, and then we'll put glue down here, and then close up that pocket. Okay, so when we turn it, now what we're going to have is a page with a little mini flap pocket. All right, I'm going to trim that just a little bit more. Okay, so then we're just going to glue this to our binding. So that's going to glue right there, and then the page will turn just like that. And I used in my book, I used graphic 45 tags, the small ones that I got from Country Craft Creations. And for this particular pocket, I just trimmed the width to create the tag that goes in that pocket. So I'll show you that in just a second. And it worked out perfect. Otherwise, you can go ahead and just cut a tag. But so let me show you. All right, so we just created this page right here, and I left one side blank. I thought a really cute little picture could go here, and then I put pattern paper on the end, and then like I was telling you, I took one of the graphic 45 tags and I just trimmed the sides to fit the pocket. So it was a little, actually I trimmed it a little bit more than I had intended to, but it worked out fine. But it made a nice little pocket, so there's another piece of that, and then you have the whole page back there. So then the back side of this card is going to be a waterfall. So let me show you how to make that with a card. Okay, so let's put this aside for a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our card, we're going to open it up, and we're going to cut off 1 inch off of the right side and 1/2 inch off the left. Okay, so let's do that. So 1 inch off the right to make it a 4-inch panel. And then the left side, we're going to take off 1/2 inch, so it will measure at 4.5. Okay, so the left side will be 4.5 inches. The right side's going to be 4 inches. The left side's bigger. Okay, and then what we're going to do, put it in our scoreboard, and then we're going to score it. Let me turn it over so the scores go the right way. You should have a score at the 4.5 inch from the natural score of the card, and then we're going to score it at 4 inches. So you're going to go a 1/2 inch to the left, just like that. Okay. So now you have 2 scores. So you will have a panel that's 4 inches, and then you'll have a 1/2 inch gusset, and then you'll have another 4 inches here. And then I'm going to fold that new score, and you see now we have 2 waterfall pages. So we're going to basically just take this and we're going to glue that 1/2 inch gusset to the edge of the page, which is going to create that waterfall. Pretty easy peasy. It's fun creating these things. I love it. I'm going to open this up so I can lay it down nice. Make sure that's nice and even. Glue it down. And then there's your waterfall assembly page. So we just created the magnet closure page with 3 pages in the pocket, and then you open it up, and then you will have this little flat pocket. Then you will have a page, then you turn it, and then you will have your waterfall page. Okay, so that's the 3rd assembly. Last but not least, let's get the last envelope section and do this. So the last envelope section, let's look at this for a second. So we're going to have the envelopes. Basically, the first part of the envelopes are just going to be adhered back to back with a middle pocket, and they're going to have a pocket on either side for tags. So super simple to do this. You're going to take 2 envelopes, okay, and we're simply going to, you have to cut these little tabs on this one if your envelopes have those tabs. And this one's a little bit hard to do, but it's going to be okay because it's going to be covered up. And then you're simply going to tuck the flap inside the envelope, okay? And you'll notice that what I did was I covered the outside pocket with pattern paper, and then I also put pattern paper on the inside of the envelope. And that helped to sturdy it up a little bit as well. So let me make that a little more even. There we go. So we're going to do that to both of the envelopes. So again, I will have to open it up and do my best to cut that straight across. And then do this. And then we're going to tuck our envelope flap inside there, okay? And then, so like I said, what I did was I put pattern paper to the inside of the envelope, which helped secure that flap and everything, and then gave it a little more strength because we're going to use it also for a middle pocket. All right, so this is super easy. We just are going to, whoop, hey, almost did it again. I'm going to miter these like so. And then we're going to glue this down like that. And take our envelope with the pocket going towards the right and glue that down onto our binding like that. And then we'll turn it over. And then we'll take our other envelope and we're going to glue it with the pocket going towards the left. And we're going to glue it on 3 sides to create our middle pocket. And it was plenty big enough. You could put 2 of those graphic 45 tags in there. And it worked out great. I got a little bit past that binding. It's not a big deal, but just lay that down, try and even it up. I did notice that sometimes the envelopes aren't quite square, but you know what? That's okay. And once you get all the stuff on it, nobody's gonna notice, that's for sure. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we have pocket here, first page, pocket in the middle, and then pocket right there. Okay. The second piece of the envelope is super fun. So the second set of envelopes, we're going to create a flat page, and you'll see that there's pattern paper here, and then there's a flat page. When you open it up, there's a pocket, and then this also, the flap also turns into a pocket. And then we have 2 pockets in the back. We have one there, and then we have one there. So we have a stacked pocket thing going on. Okay, so we're going to take our envelope and we're going to cut this piece off. Okay, so I'm just going to run that in my cutter real quick and cut it off. Okay, so we have that piece. I just cut the glue off. And the reason I did that is because we're going to use it as a pocket, and I need a sliver more cut off. But anyways, we're going to use this as a pocket, and you don't want that glue sticking out to see. So let me cut another sliver off of that. Okay. All right, and then we're going to need another piece of cardstock because we're going to make that flat page, okay, and it will go to here. So the envelope is 7 1/4 long, and it's 5 1/4 wide, so you don't want it to go past like 5 inches wide. So we're just going to cut it straight at 7 1/4 by, let's go 4 1/2. What the heck? That'll show a little bit more pattern paper once we get it down. And that flap is simply going to glue to this. Now in the book that I made, I put the pattern paper on the flap first because I really went to, to the flap shape. But you don't have to do that. You can do it straight across and just do a strip. And that's what I'm going to do for this book. So that way I don't have to fuss with that right now. So this is just going to glue right to the top of that. And then we'll put a piece of pattern paper over top of it, and it will cover up the edges of this flap. And then that'll give you a little pocket here. So we're just going to glue on 3 sides to this flap. Like that. And then we'll stick our piece of cardstock right there. You can edge punch this if you want. You certainly do not have to. Okay, so now we've created a flap with a little pocket here. Okay, and then we have our pocket here. I'm also going to trim this because I do like it. And I'm going to put a little pattern paper in there, and then that will... And again, I'm going to show the finished product pictures at the end of this video, and probably at the beginning of it too, just so you can see what it looks like when I get it all done. Okay, so now we have a page that looks like this, and we're just going to simply glue it to the front of that. So a little glue here. We're almost done, people. It's going to be fun. I think you're going to have fun with this. And I know, hashtag quarantine crafts, I guess. We all have cards in our stash and envelopes that I don't know about you, but I got a ton of them because I thought I was going to be a card maker, and turns out not so much. I try, but it's not my thing. I really like making books. I probably should practice. That would be better for me. Okay, so we have our flap page, and we have our pocket, so we're going to turn it over, and now we're going to add to this. So we're going to take our very last envelope, and we are going to glue it closed. So what I did was I glued a wee bit there, and I kind of glued down the side just a little bit. on the flap. And then I put a little line of glue across the top here, where the pocket of the envelope is. And then I just glued that down. Okay, so that envelope is sealed. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to cut it at 4.5 inches. So then that'll give me 2 pieces. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so I just cut my envelope. This is 4.5 inches. Okay, and then this piece measures 2 3/4 inches. Okay, I'm going to layer, turn it over so the right side's up. I'm going to layer that pocket onto here, and I'm just simply going to just glue it on, making sure, of course, that the pocket is up so we can use it. Okay. Then pattern paper will slip down into that pocket and make it all pretty. So we have a pocket here, and we have our pocket up here, and then guess what? You guessed it, we're just going to glue that down to the back of the envelope that we just put, and then our page is finished. So then we have the 2 stacked pockets. So you can see each assembly, the card assembly is required 4 cards, so 2 cards for each page of the assembly. And then the envelopes required 4, so 2 envelopes per page of the assembly. So this is the back. And I'm just going to glue this down. Okay, all done. So now, this envelope assembly, we have a pocket here. We have a pocket in the middle. We turn it over, we have a pocket here. Then we have our flat page with a big pocket and a nice little small tuck pocket. And then when we turn that page, we are going to have a stacked pocket. So we have one here and we have one here. And then that's it. We are done. So we've got all of our assemblies. When I put them in the book, I alternated them. So I have card assembly, envelope assembly, card assembly, envelope assembly. And they're different heights, and that's okay because, and this is why I did not put pattern paper on the inside spine, because I wanted it to kind of blend in so it's not real obvious that everything is different, but you can see it a little bit. Like here's a card assembly, here's an envelope assembly. You can see that the height is a little bit different, but it kind of blends in because the bindings are white and the spine is white. You're going to put pattern paper on the outside, and that will help stiffen this up, and you could even like double mat it if you wanted to and make it even more sturdy. But if you use, like I said, heavyweight cardstock, at least 80 pound, Artisan cardstock is like 87 pound, and it's perfect for this. Then you'll have a nice like folio album, and you're going to be okay with that. That's going to be just fine. Okay, so let's put them in the actual album cover, and then, ladies and gentlemen, we're done with the construction of this, and then it's just a matter of decorating and tags. You can make tags. You can use journaling cards from your stash, Project Life cards, you know, whatever you have. Paper collections have cut-aparts. All that stuff can be used. So let's make sure that the orientation, so this is the front of my album, this is the back of my album. I've got everything right side up. So I'm going to turn it to the side here real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, actually I'm not going to turn it to the side. I'm going to make a couple little quick marks here. So I'm going to put my ruler down here, and I'm going to start by making just a little light pencil mark at 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to go to 1 inch, 1 3/4 inch, 2.5, and that's all you got to do. Okay, so put the tick marks at 1/4 inch, 1 inch, 1 3/4, 2.5, and then move it down, get it nice and centered again, and do the same thing. So 1/4 inch, 1 inch, 1 3/4, 2.5. That's all you got to do for tick marks. That's where we're going to place our pages. So I've got them in the order I want: card, envelope, card, envelope. I'm going to take my first one, and I'm going to fold it so that the binding piece is down and flat. And then I'm going to take my art glitter glue and I'm going to put glue on that 1/2 inch piece. And then I'm just going to line it up with the first set of lines. And I'm going to center it from top to bottom, and I'm kind of eyeballing it. And I'm going to go right on those pencil marks because sometimes they're really hard to erase if you don't. So I'm going to basically cover them up. And then lay that bad boy down. Looks pretty centered. Looks pretty even. Okay. And then I'm going to go in and make sure that everything is happy. First page done. All right, turn it to the side. Oops, I'm gonna get my smeared my pencil mark. I don't really want to do that. Okay, and then I'm gonna take my envelope assembly, my next one, fold it, making sure everything's the way I want it, and do the same thing. This one will be on the next set of tick marks at 1 inch that we did, which will be 1/4 of an inch between the page sets, and then about 1/4 of an inch up and down right on the tick marks. There we go. Lay that down, make sure it's nice and straight. Looks pretty good. And then open that up and make sure that is down. And that's all there is to binding this. Now, the bindings are pretty heavyweight cardstock too, so that does help give some oomph to, you know, the spine as well from the inside. So you can, like I said, totally use pattern paper to cover the spine. It is way up to you. You could also, if you wanted to, use another piece of white cardstock and reinforce it from the inside if you wanted to keep the white, but you wanted to reinforce it a little bit more. So there's options for this. And the nice thing about this too is that because the two assemblies are alternating and they both are different heights, if you're off a little bit when you eyeball it, it's not gonna, nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna see that. So if you're off like 1 millimeter or something, it's no big deal. All right. All right, there we go. Now, last page assembly. Flattening it out. And here you go. Okay. Okay. All right. Our book is done. All right. Woohoo! Okay, so here we go. Let's go through this. So we have all of our pages bound. Basically, it's just decorating now. Here's our cover. And what I did on the inside cover was I've covered it with pattern paper, and then I put a little triangle piece of scrap paper to make a pocket. You can do whatever you want. But then as we go through the book, so you have a pocket here, and then you have a pocket here. Then you turn it over, you have a flip page with 2 nice layout pages. You have a pocket here, and when you turn it over, you have a flip up here, and then also this one has a top pocket. Then you have a page that I just left the envelope plain, covered these two with pattern paper, and I did it completely to the edge just because I felt like it. And then you have a nice pocket here. You could also add another piece of cardstock here and make it a page, however you want to do it. And then you turn it, you have an envelope flip with a pocket here, and then a full page here. And I need to trim the corners so I can get the pattern paper inside, or you could just cover this with pattern paper and just have a plain, you know, page. So then next page you have a pocket here, and then you turn it and you have a gatefold, And this one I did cover completely with pattern paper here, and then covered the flaps with pattern paper to make the gatefold. You have a magnet here that holds the trifold booklet together here, and then you have this little flip pocket here with that, and then you turn your page, and then you have your waterfall. Then you have your pocket here, here, and here. This page flips out. You have a little tuck pocket here. You have a pocket here. And then the back page, a stacked pocket here. So that is how I created my card and envelope album. It does take me back to the days where I was learning how to do albums, and how I really got into learning how to do construction, and thinking about how to configure pages and do all that stuff. So this is kind of like back to my roots. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Happy post-National Scrapbooking Day 2020. Happy quarantine crafts, whatever you want to call it. I hope you have fun. Use up your supplies, and go to town with this. Again, if you have any questions, please give me a call. I hope you like it. And I hope this really does inspire you to make something beautiful and have fun. Let me grab the other book so we can kind of have that laid out too. So you can make all kinds of stuff. There's lots of room to put embellishments in. You can see this one's pretty chunky because I put a lot of stuff in it. But there's still plenty of room for fun pictures and things. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a really, really good day. Bye-bye.